Is the steering on your John Deere 420 loose? On this tractor, when I drive it, I can hardly control it and steer it and manipulate it to where I want it to go. So we're gonna fix that. In this video, I'll walk you through every step of the process to repair the steering on your tractor. Today, I'm working on a John Deere 420, but the techniques will also apply to a M, a MT, a 40, the 420 of course, the 430, a 435, and even a 1010. There will be some differences in the sizes of the gears and such, of course. However, the techniques will still be the same and you'll be able to follow along. So the first thing that we want to do is to take the front nose off of the tractor. So we'll take the radiator cap off, and then there's some Zeus fasteners on your hood. There should be, if it is close to original. And those you can take off. I already have the two taken off on the side. I'll show you how you take this one off on the front. You just use a screwdriver and you can push in and it'll loosen up and come out all of the way, and then your front nose will come off. You can see that our front nose piece as well as our hood is off. We did put the radiator cap and the gas cap back on just to keep our tank clean and also not smell the gas fumes while we're working. Also on this tractor, you will notice that the weight on the front is not what would originally fit on this tractor. Also, it has an alternator right here. That's the way the tractor came to us, so we're just gonna roll with it. Now that we have our hood off, we can examine the gear up here. There is a screw here which is for adjustment, and sometimes you can do a small adjustment if your parts aren't worn completely. You would be able to do an adjustment and take a lot of the slack out of the steering. However, our screw is already screwed in and it definitely needs some further repair than that. So let's take the cover off and see what's going on in here. I'm going to pull this cover off, and you can see that the adjustment screw is right here, and this is where it hits on top of that shaft. And when I turn the steering wheel, you can see that there's probably a quarter to half a turn before we get any action with the front wheels moving. So you can see that these pins are quite worn into the worm gear here. So we're going to take this shaft out next. In order to get the shaft out of the tractor, we have to take the nut off of the bottom. There's a nut with a small lock washer underneath it, which that will come off fairly easily. But then on our tractor, the yoke of the end of the tie rod was really stuck on the bottom of the spline down underneath there. So we did have to use a torch and heat that up, and then we were able to pry it off, and it easily dropped once it was heated up. But you may have to do the same. You might really have trouble getting that yoke off of the bottom of the spline. So don't be afraid to use heat if you need to, and just be careful and get that spline, get the yoke off the spline. Once that's done, then your whole shaft should pull right up. I'm just gonna gently pry with a screwdriver and it'll come all the way out. We're going to take this cover off, and then we'll be able to get the bearing with the rollers out from behind it. First, there will be a snap ring and a little gasket. So let's get this off. Looks like the gasket came with my cover, which is okay. And then there's a snap ring here. With safety glasses on, you can pull that snap ring off, and it might go flying for us. Let me get a screwdriver in there. Pry it off. There we go. Okay. Now we can pull this these rollers out. They're probably going to go flying just like that. There's a few more in there. You'll need to remove the shaft up here by the steering wheel. You can see that there's a pin that you can just drive through there, and then you can drive this sleeve back and it'll free up your shaft. At this point, you can pull your worm gear out, and here it comes. Again, we have another shaft with the rollers on the end, which will slide through this hole. Just trying to be really gentle. It's coming. There we go. Just like that, there's your worm gear. At this point, we're ready to reassemble our worm gear. Now, if you inspect your worm gear and you need a new one, for a M or a MT or a 40 tractor, we do have those available from Steiner. If you're working on other models, they're in progress and will be available in 2017 if you need to replace your worm gear. We're going to roll with the same worm gear that we have and put it back together. We'll take our old snap ring off, and then the race will pull off, and you can see all the old rollers fall out. I'm going to move these aside because we don't want to put them back in. Set that over there. Here's our worm gear. This is our new race. This is a replacement race which you can purchase from Steiner Tractor Parts, as well as the rollers. Just going to put some wheel bearing grease on there and slide it over. Then I'm going to take my new rollers and drop them down in there. There's 11 that go all the way around. A few more to squeeze in down here. And they're all in. That looks good. Now we have a new snap ring, which will just slide on there. Just like that. Okay. At this point, we're just going to follow the same process on the other end. So I've got my grease on there. Then I'm going to slide all of my rollers down in there. Slide it around. I think I need a little bit more grease. And got 3 more to slide in. Oops. I slid off the bottom here. Let's try that again. Okay. It's really sticky. Okay, I'm going to hold this on here. Drop my rollers in. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got 3 more to slide in here. Gets a little tighter at the end here. There we go. And that one's in. This is our last one here. There we go. It's dropped in. You can see they slide around there nice. And then we'll put our snap ring on. There we go. Just going to pack this with grease really well before we slide it onto the tractor. I'll do that on both ends, and then we'll be ready to put it right back in. There is an oil seal on this end, which you'll see. We replaced the oil seal, and then once we put this all back together, we're going to go with a grease box instead of putting gear lube in there. Ooh, that was a little rough. Okay, push this through. A new worm gear with the rollers on there, just a little bit more. There we go. Snapping in, and I might just tap it a little bit to go the last. There we go. Here we have a new shim ready to go on, just like that, and then you can put your cover on. This cover only goes one way, then it's that way. The numbers are over here to the side and up at the top. So then you can put your 3 bolts through there and tighten it up. I want to show you how tight this is. All the sloppiness is gone by replacing that race and the roller. Also keep in mind that you may want to replace your worm gear as well if that part's available to you. Here's our half moon key. Oops, first I'm going to put this washer on, like that. And then we'll put our half moon key in, and then our shaft can slide right over that key, like so. And then we'll use that Allen screw. I'm just going to rotate it here so I can see. We'll put that Allen screw right back through there. We'll tighten this up all the way. And then we'll move up towards the steering wheel and reattach it there as well. I want to show you how our shaft is reattached here. We drove this collar back across and put the pin through there to hold it in place. Then this part of the shaft had to be driven back up to the steering wheel. So we did that, and now it's all assembled, and you can see how nicely it goes around and steers. At this point, I'm going to grind off the top of these pins on the shaft. You'll see I have it in my vise with cardboard around there to protect it. So we'll grind off the top, and then we can drive it through with a pin. You can see that the pin's starting to move out a little bit here. So I drive it through. There we go. Now we'll do the second one, just like that. At this point, we're ready to put our new pins in. I just put a little bit of thread locker on there so it will fit in there nicely. And I'll just put it in there, and then I'll tap it the rest of the way with a hammer up until it's tight like that. And then we'll do it on the other side as well. Whenever you use a thread locker, you want to make sure that the part is clean. very clean before you put the formula on there. Oops. And then you can slide it in and tap it in again. I'm just adding a little bit of grease to my shaft before I drop it in. I put some at the top, here in the middle where it's going to rub, and then down at the bottom. And then we're ready to insert it into the tractor. Notice that both of our front wheels are facing forward right now. There is a bushing in this neck here, and if your steering had play there, had some give, then you would want to replace that bushing. Ours does not have play there. Our play was all right in this area, so keep that in mind. Looks like I might be stuck down here at the bottom, so I'm just going to pry up that bottom yoke and see if it'll drop in. Oops, there we go. Okay, now it's dropped in there, and we're ready to put our cover on. We packed some grease inside the box here. You can see a little bit of it. You don't want to pack it so it's so tight that it won't move, but pack it so that it's greasy enough to actually move around and flow freely in there. Now that's done, we're ready to put our gasket on. Got a new gasket here. You can see that we cleaned up the surface really well from the old gasket before putting the new one on, and try to get some of that grease off my hands. And then we'll drop this cover right over top, just like that, and then put all of our bolts in. We do have the washer underneath there still. We have this bolt reattached down here. It was quite the struggle. What you can do is you can pry up on this yoke, and it will give you enough of the threads exposed that you can start it. Remember, there is that lock washer in there, and stick with it. It might help if you have somebody that has small hands that can start that for you. Or if you really cannot get it and you've been struggling at it for a while, you can drop the axle, the front axle, to get that back on, but that would just be so much more work. I think you can stick with it and get it like we did with the axle still on. As you can see, our sheet metal is back on the tractor and we wrapped everything up. We also have the front wheels jacked up just a little bit so that I can show you how it steers. We'll show you that it's going to steer all the way to the left, which is very good, and then we'll steer it back. Can't believe how much of a difference this made. And then we'll go all the way to the right. It's really good. Steering problems are fixed, and now we'll be able to drive this tractor again because we can steer it. I hope that these steps are helpful to you when you need to replace the steering on your John Deere. We do have several tutorials that cover even other models and makes that you can watch at steinertractor.tv.